Okay, so do you think that Chicanos in the U.S. are underdeveloped? And if you do think so, then why do you think that they are?
I suppose yes. I mean, if you look at the statistics of education and income and even things like infant mortality rates, the Chicanos are not as healthy and robust as the white population, or the black population is not doesn't do that well either, or the Native American population. So it kind of suggests that the Chicanos, I'm intrigued by that because Chicanos was the movement of my youth when I was in high school. It was the first really significant Chicano movement. And then increasing, I just hear like Latino. I haven't heard Chicano quite so much. I'm absolutely comfortable with it because that's what I grew up with. But you know, traditional American minority that have come to the United States in a variety of different ways. I teach the history of California, so I get to see all the different ways that Mexicans, and for a long time, Mexicans have come to the United States, or to California specifically. But most of them came, of course, originally sort of at the bottom tier of the economy as agricultural laborers. And it's just difficult in the United States to start from the bottom and pull yourself up, especially given the fact that much of the United States, for a long time in the United States, many people think it's a white man's country. And we still have basically a white establishment, even though, for instance, in California, I mean, it's going to be a white minority state very soon, if it isn't already. And of course, the Latino population is going to be the dominant population. And I'm assuming that in the end that will result in them becoming much better position in terms of the economy and the society. And we're already seeing that already. But they've had to deal with the discrimination that is sort of just common in the United States, where we have a egalitarian legal system. But that doesn't mean that people are treated equally. African Americans have not forever, of course. Native Americans, Latinos also, Chicanos also. But you know, I feel like I see a lot of change though too. So many more Latino students in our classes. That's a good sign. There's no doubt about that. I teach history, and I've wanted there to be like a Latino student who really wanted to become a historian, because I think we need more, like in community college, for just general, in education in general, but especially in college and university levels. But that hasn't happened yet. It's hard, you know, to overcome certain cultural notions. If your parents aren't educated, then you know, there's not always the value for you to become educated. I don't know that much about Latino values towards education. We know like Asian values, of course. The Asian community just always seems to really promote that. And thus the Asian population in the United States is one of the most educated populations there, and been terribly successful in the schools. Black community has had a harder time promoting that. If the parents aren't educated, they don't seem quite so much the impetus to get their children educated. I think maybe the Latino community has suffered the same situation to a degree. But more and more affluent Latinos, more and more educated Latinos, you know, that seems like that's going to change. I think it is going to change. I think it's changing already. But I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, and just one more question. What do you think are some of the social issues that they face on a daily basis in the classroom, like students, and as professionals in like the business field or as teachers? Or
I would know less about them in the business field. Of course, I feel like I can respond to the classroom thing. If you don't come from a tradition of education and strong support for that in your family, I think. I mean, I'm the son of two teachers, so that just meant that I was absolutely, you know, there was no question I would go to college, and I have an advanced degree, PhD, and that was sort of normal in my family too. But if that's not normal, then I often feel like some of my Latino students are like pioneers for their family. They're the first to go to college. They're the first to really try to get into higher education. And anytime you're in that situation, it's going to be difficult. Is there the support structure of your family behind you? In my case, it's always there. So I'm going to be successful. If you don't have that, I have no idea how that would be to fight to not have that. That would seem really difficult to me. But you may not have the skills, you know, the study skills. In my family, you know, we were read to from the very beginning, and we were taken to museums and taken to plays and just exposed to all these things that are part of our culture. So when I got to the level of higher education, I was sort of already prepared in so many ways. I was a good reader, could take the notes, could write relatively well. People who aren't reading as much, you know, or have struggled in high school or struggled in elementary school, it's going to be hard for them here too. It's just, that's the nature of the game. And I don't quite know how to overcome that. I mean, the way you overcome it is by, you know, have a first-generation Latino student go to college, and then they create the values associated with, you know, education. Then they promote their children to go to college and maybe get an MA. Then the next one gets a PhD, and then go into the business field and make their own businesses, become teachers, educators. You know, that's the way you start to climb up in this society. It's not fast. It's not a fast process. We don't have rapid social mobility unless you win the lottery. But you know, there is that sort of slow mobility over generations that we can see, and I think we are seeing. I don't know what in the 1920s, if you're Mexican American in California, I'm sure you were just a farm laborer. But now we're seeing, you know, the mayor of Los Angeles is Latino, and members of the House of Representatives from the state of California, members of the legislature, educators. And so things are changing in that regard. I'm sure it's not fast enough, as fast as it should be, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that still see tremendous obstacles in their way. But that's what we're here for education. We're trying to promote that change and hope that you know, we can provide an avenue for success for them.